Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about time signatures and rhythm. A time signature basically tells you how many beats there are in a bar and what kind of beat it is. So this first one, 4/4, the top note tells us how many beats in the bar, 4 beats. The bottom one tells us that it's a quarter note. So there are 4 quarter notes in this bar. In this one, 3/4, 3 tells us how many beats, there are 3 beats, and the 4 still tells us quarter notes. If we go down to these time signatures, the 8th stands for 8th note, so there are 12 8th notes in this bar of 12/8, 9 8th notes in this bar, and 6 8th notes in this one. So let's go back up here. When we talk about time signatures, we label based on the big beat and the small beat. So the big beats are what you can see based on a time signature: 1, 2, 3, 4. And the small beats are being represented by the 8th notes. So 4/4 has 4 big beats, 3/4 3 big beats, and 2/4 2. So anything that has big beats that are divisible by 2, so in this case 2/4 and 4/4, we're going to call a duple meter. 3/4 isn't divisible by 2, it has 3, and so we're going to call that a triple meter. If you want a sort of simple frame of reference, triple meters tend to feel a little bit like waltzes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whereas duple meters tend to sound a bit more maybe march-like. So 1, 2, 3, 4. A little squarer. So that's how the big beat works. When we're looking at the little beat, we're basically looking at whether the big beat is turned into 2 little beats, or in the case of these meters down here, 3 little beats. So you see 12/8 has 4 big beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a duple meter, but each of those big beats breaks down into little beats of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. That's what we call a compound meter. The other type of meter, which is what we're seeing up here, is called a simple meter. So if we want to fully explain 4/4, we're going to call it a simple duple meter. Same with 3/4, a simple triple meter. With these compound meters, where that big beat is breaking down into 3 instead of 2, we're going to call this 12/8 a compound duple meter. So look at the way that the big beats are organized in 9/8. And think about what we would label this. So we've got 1, 2, 3 big beats. So it's going to be a triple meter, and each of those big beats breaks down into 3 little beats. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. So it's going to be compound. So a compound triple meter. Same thing with 6/8. We have 2 big beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. So we've got a duple compound meter. Sometimes things don't fit into our basic categories so easily. Now I've got a couple of these down here. 5/8 and 7/8 are 2 examples of those. So 5/8 sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And sometimes you can get the 2 first. So this is 3 plus 2. It's a mixture of compound and simple. Sometimes the simple can come first, and so we'd have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Either way, it's going to feel like an irregular feel. It doesn't have a very crisp, clean feel like 4/4 does. Same thing with 7/8. We've got a mixture of compound and simple. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. And again, you could put the simple part at the beginning of the measure. You could put the triple part at the end. That would sound like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So these meters you see a little bit less often in the classical repertoire. As you get into the 20th century, you see them a lot more though. Finally, there are meters that seem odd but are actually just expansions of the meters that we already have. So if you see something like 3/2, think about what that time signature is telling us. We have 3 beats in the bar, and the 2 is telling us that they're half notes. So we have 3 half notes. And I've split this up into quarter notes so we can see both the big beat, which is being shown by the accents in this case, and the little beat, which is being shown by the quarter notes. So based on what we know, we have 1, 2, 3 big beats, so it's a triple meter, and they're being split into 2, so it's a simple triple meter. So simple because it breaks down into 2, triple because there are 3 big beats in the bar. So we look at 6/4, again, looks like it's a bit weird, but we can deal with this. So basically it's the same as 6/8, it's just we have quarter notes instead of 8th notes. So it's telling us 6 quarter notes in the bar, and it's being split 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 2 big beats, and that's being split into groups of 3. So this is a compound duple meter. So the last thing we have to talk about with rhythm is how to write rhythms so that they make sense. So if you look at this rhythm I have here in 4/4, from a performance standpoint, it just doesn't look right, right? So we can do the first note, that's a quarter note. We can probably do the second one, but then we get into this dotted quarter tied to the 8th, and what we really want to show when we're writing rhythms are the big beats as often as we possibly can. So we want to see 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes we can't see 2 and 4, like if we had a dotted quarter note. That's okay, as long as we can see in 4/4, 1 and 3. So let's rewrite this rhythm so that it makes more sense. So we can keep that quarter note at the beginning, and then the 8th note is fine as well. Now this dotted quarter note here is being tied across beat 3, and we don't really want that. So what we're going to do is put another 8th note in beat 2 so that we can see the separation into beat 3, and then we need to finish the rest of the dotted quarter note. So the 8th note, dotted quarter note, is just the dot is telling us that the note is extended by half its original length. So a quarter note plus a dot is a beat plus a half a beat, so 3 8th notes. So in this case, that dotted quarter note can be turned into this 8th note tied to a quarter note. And then because this dotted quarter note is tied to an 8th note, we're going to tie it again, and there's our last 8th note. There is another way that you could show this, and like I said, sometimes it's okay not to see 2 and 4. They're not as strong as 1 and 3 in 4/4. So to tidy this one up a little bit, I'm going to turn that quarter note into a dotted quarter note. So this rhythm is much more performable. We see 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is being held in this dotted quarter note, but that's okay. So this rhythm comes out like bum, 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 bum. We can do that pretty easily. This first measure, we probably wouldn't have been able to perform that. Okay, so let's do the same thing with a compound meter. So this is in 6/8, so we know we want to see beats 1 and beat 2. This looks weird, so I don't know what I would do with this if I was a performer. Let's try and turn this into something that makes sense. So why don't you give it a go, try and make it so that we can see beat 1 and beat 2, and remember that the big beat in 6/8, 9/8, 12/8 is going to be a dotted quarter note in length because it splits into 3. So pause now, give it a go, we'll come back and look at it. Okay, so we know that this half note is too long to fit in beat 1. So the first thing we're going to do is put a dotted quarter note there. We know we're going to need to tie it. So the half note is a dotted quarter note plus an 8th note, so that's 4 8th notes. And so that's what we need to do here. We need to add an 8th note to that dotted quarter note. And then the rest of it, we have 2 16ths that aren't beamed together, and then 2 16ths that are. In 6/8, as long as it's within one of the big beats, you can beam everything together. So if you look at this one, I'm just going to add the 4 16th notes. And that's the rhythm that we have. So if we look at this first measure, we're like ba, 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 ba. If we look at the second one, ba, 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 ba. So this can be a tricky topic, and we'll get a lot more chances to practice this in class. The thing to remember now is that what we want to see when we're rewriting rhythms, or when we're writing them as composers, is the big beat. That's going to help a performer really understand how the music is working rhythmically. So this was your introduction to rhythm.